virtual machine administrators who are playing all the roles of network, storage, and server administrators simultaneously. This convergence of roles brings new challenges. We'll need to rethink policies and related processes for handoffs between security and operations teams, one responsible for governing the information infrastructure, the other ensures quality of service. Let's hear more now on the topic of virtualization from Paul Moritz of VMware.
Hello, I'm Paul Moritz, CEO at VMware. IT organizations are under pressure to do three things at the same time. They're under pressure to increase efficiency, to become more agile, and to increase security of the data center. Now, we think virtualization is key to achieving all three of these goals. In fact, virtualization is what allows IT organizations to achieve those goals in an evolutionary way. So the work that we're jointly doing today here is very important. If we're to make the private cloud more secure, we really have to work together as an industry. We have to make sure that, first of all, technological cooperation happens to ensure that security is built into the fabric. That means that we have to integrate our respective technological solutions. We have to change processes. It's going to be much more important in the future for security providers to be able to provide real-time information directly into the data center. And we have to address the role of people. It's going to have to become a much easier task for the various people who have responsibilities for the various aspects of the infrastructure and security to work together in a common administrative model. And I'm happy to say that we're working very closely with our colleagues at RSA to allow this to happen. And it should take the form of new products that ship from both VMware and from RSA in 2010. So we have a very ambitious agenda ahead of us, but we think it speaks to those three fundamental needs: to improve efficiency, agility, and security. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Virtualization is the engine of the cloud that will propel us forward. Not in one sudden giant leap, but rather as a journey that organizations will take at their own pace, realizing tangible benefits at every step along the way. And by embedding security in the virtual layer, we get our do-over. We can enforce policies for information, identity, and infrastructure within this virtual layer. As a result, we can shift from infrastructure to information-centric policy, concentrating on what is most important: information and who gets access, rather than on a meaningless perimeter or mere plumbing. We see four well-defined stages on this journey. The journey begins with virtualization of non-mission critical infrastructure like test and development systems, as well as low-risk applications. According to VMware statistics, about 25% of servers are virtualized today, and many of your organizations are well into this phase now. Given the non-critical nature of the applications, there are relatively few new security requirements at this initial phase. But it's in this stage that you will become adept with the tools of virtualization and begin the process of hardening the virtual infrastructure. In the second stage, organizations virtualize critical business applications. Here, your infrastructure becomes far more scalable and elastic, and your security requirements will scale in proportion. You'll need the same level of visibility for compliance in this virtual environment that you had in the physical. But here, insider risk increases in importance because of the portability of virtual machines. And it's at this point that we'll want to push security down the stack, deep in the virtual layer, embedding controls that today are bolted on to the physical infrastructure. In the third stage of the journey, the enterprise begins to develop internal clouds and operates its information infrastructure as a utility. This stage consists of a fully virtualized and automated data center where application workloads are policy and service level driven. Now the enterprise must have far more mature processes for governance, risk, and compliance, GRC, that can span the physical and virtual infrastructures. And because of the convergence of roles I spoke of earlier, server administration, network, etc., monitoring and controlling privileged access becomes increasingly important. Additionally, self-service and self-provisioning add new layers of complexity. So monitoring and controlling changes here will also be critical. In the fourth stage, things get really interesting. Enterprises start to outsource their infrastructures to external service providers, hybrid clouds, if you will. But you won't want any part of that unless service providers can demonstrate their ability to effectively enforce policy, prove compliance, and manage multi-tenancy. At this stage, federation becomes an important capability. Organizations will need the ability to dictate and federate identity and policy to their service providers so information can be handled and accessed appropriately. Next, they'll need to demand that cloud providers deliver strong proof of compliance even in the deepest levels of the cloud. Service providers should be able to tell compliance officers and auditors just about anything they need to know with verifiable metrics. The ultimate goal is to generate a concise summary of relevant events occurring in the infrastructure that feeds directly into a GRC dashboard that visualizes the state of compliance in real time. The last element in this fourth stage is how the multi-tenant environment is managed. This is probably the toughest part because service providers must defend against commingling the sensitive data of multiple tenants. To achieve isolation requires controlling the flow of information between the tenants. To do this, we will need to create pools of trusted resources or zones. These trusted zones will be directly managed by the virtual infrastructure that ensures the enforcement of information policy within and between these zones. But sometimes you just don't want the same two tenants on the same physical machine. For example, I can't imagine Coke would ever want their virtual machines on the same hardware as Pepsi's. So to achieve this will require innovative thinking on how we, in essence, reconnect the physical to the virtual world. This can be accomplished by leveraging a hardware root of trust at the chip level that verifies virtual machines are running on the right hardware systems. Hardware roots of trust could also then be leveraged to create trusted pools of systems with similar security profiles or compliance requirements that can then be dynamically allocated to optimize workloads. These trusted pools of cloud resources really become the best of both worlds. They provide the fluidity and flexibility of the cloud with the assurance of predictable, proven security controls and processes. This capability to achieve visibility to infrastructure as a service, assure the security posture of that service, trust the resulting measurements, and prove compliance is not just theoretical. This morning, RSA announced a collaboration and proof of concept